bass.
Hey, Funketeers, Bootsy here to bring the Truth and Rhythm family's attention to Funk, Not Fight. Yeah, this is a call to action. We spread hope, not hate, to gain satisfaction throughout our communities via the music uplifting unity. Peppermint Patty, tell us a little more.
Thinker is our partner. Thinker Music, that is. So please check the link that's scrolling across the bottom, click it, and submit your music.
Let's all funk, not fight.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm.
I am pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership drummer and singer Jody Sims, best known as a founding member of one of the most successful soul funk bands of the late 1970s and early 1980s, Switch. First known as a Barry White protege group called White Heat, after being signed to Motown and under the mentorship of Jermaine Jackson, Switch released 4 straight top 25 R&B albums and 5 top 25 singles. Featuring Bobby DeBarge's soaring falsetto, those hits included There'll Never Be and I Call Your Name. Other notable songs included I Want to Be Closer, Best Beat in Town, Love Over and Over Again, We Like to Party, Come On, Go On Doing What You Feel, Power to Dance, You Keep Me High, and Just Can't Pull Away. Switch's wonderful music continues to delight thousands of listeners today. Jody, it's so good to have you. Thanks for joining the show.
Good to be here. Nice to be here, Scott.
Where are you today, Jody?
I'm in Las Vegas. That's where we make our home now, in Las Vegas. Yeah. Oh, Las Vegas, Nevada.
How long have you been out there?
It's going on 7 years now. We came out here and liked it and stayed. So yeah, 7 years.
Okay. Well, been looking forward to talking music with you. And I know viewers and listeners are anxious to hear what you have to share. So let's roll it back to Ohio That's where you hail from, right? And can you just tell us, the role that music played for you early on and how you gravitated towards the drums?
Well, my grandfather, he played with Duke Ellington, and he was a jazz saxophonist, drummer, piano player. And so he used to always sit me on his knee and tell me his stories when I was a little pup there. And so I always was fascinated by music. And so there was this opportunity in school when I was in the 5th grade where they were going to give lessons. Anyone wanted to join the band and read music and learn music. And so I took up the drums. He bought me a drum pad and some sticks, and I just I gravitated to the drums from that point on. So it's from my granddad, really.
And did you ever have lessons, or you just kind of did it all on your own?
No, I had lessons. Actually, when starting in the 5th grade, I went all the way through. Played in a high school band, and I read music from that point. Yes, all the way from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. And what were some of your, favorite artists, and what genres of music did you really like?
Well, I always started with I love singing jazz. So Mel Torme's and the Frank Sinatra type when I was young. And as I got older, I gravitated to R&B, and I loved James Brown, the backbeat on the drums. He always had that tight snare. So I love that tight snare. So I just picked up his style, so to speak, the drummer style, and the James Brown style with that tight backbeat. And so I gravitate to that. So if a song has a nice, strong backbeat, then I'm there all the way through, even to this day. If you got a backbeat, you got me. If it don't have a backbeat, it's kind of hard, but I'll roll with it sometimes. Just got to have that backbeat, that James Brown backbeat. I've always I gravitated to that. That's it.
Yeah, syncopation, right?
Yeah.
How old were you when you first got into what you would consider a real band, where you actually started playing in front of people?
17. It was 17. We got a little group together. It was called the Gifts, and we only lasted for a minute because then we changed it over to TNT Flashers. But the Gifts, we had a little a job down there in what was that, Fallensby, and so we went down to our first gig, and we didn't have transportation to get there. My dad was working, so he had an extra car, and so let's say we borrowed his car because we had to get down to the gig and we didn't have no transportation. So we took his car, and it broke down coming back. So that was the very first gig I ever had. My dad's car broke down, overheated. We had to put the call in, and because he was working, and he got off work, and just right around that time he got off work. He worked 3 to 11 is at that time. And he had to come down there and get us. And they didn't really get on me too much. It's surprising now I look back on it, but it was a very scary experience. But the very first gig I had, that was it.
Wow. It didn't discourage you, though. So that was good.
No. So that was the beginning right there, the very first. We liked it. We actually didn't even play inside. It was on a sidewalk. It was a grand opening of a store, and we played on the sidewalk. Still played. It was still fun.
Yeah. So you're doing a bunch of cover tunes, I'm guessing?
Yes, all cover tunes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And were you mostly playing R&B, or were you playing like a repertoire of like some pop too, or what?
Oh yeah, we started out kind of playing some I would say R&B, but we always gravitated as the Flashers. It was the TNT Flashers. We traveled around the tri-state there in Ohio. We had all types of genre. We played a lot of like Aretha Franklin's, the Carpenters, and Neil Sedaka. We even did Diana Ross songs. So we kind of like was in the middle of the road, and I think that's why people liked us, because it was always that harmony We always sang a lot of harmonies, and he liked it.
Other than James Brown, were there any groups around at that time that you were sort of aspiring to become?
Oh yeah, Pardon and Funkadelic. Love them. And reason because we played with them once, like on stage, we shared a stage, we played with them. And so once I saw them and they were real crazy, they had the diapers on and just real crazy. But I kind of ducked to that. And then War for sure. And I liked that group as well. So yeah, it was pretty much that. And then Stevie Wonder later on, but those were the groups. Pardon and Funkadelic was the one. Right there. They were great. And you got that Atomic Dog on your shirt.
It's the anniversary. Yeah. What year would you say that was that you saw Parliament Funkadelic first time?
That was probably about 72, 71, 72. Well, actually, because they were before that, they were Parliament. They yeah, it was about maybe 70 when I first saw them. Yeah, around 70.
Wow, really early. So they were just raw and crazy at that time.
Yeah, they were at some small label, and they didn't really break out. Coincidentally, when Switch, when we were really popular, we jumped up on the Billboard charts. We was number 2 with the Bullet, and that Flashlight, Pardon and Funkadelic. They took the number 1 spot. We never did get there. And it was just a coincidence. That was the group that I liked a long time ago. So I didn't like them anymore after that. So they're all right.
Yeah, well, Flashlight is undeniable.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's true.
If you have to like lose out to something, I mean, could have been a lot worse.
Why not that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So how did things progress, Jody? Moving toward what would eventually become, White Heat.
Well, we the TNT Flashers, we always had a lot of opportunities. We had an opportunity to sign with James Brown, then with Art LeBeau, and then we went to California and then to Phoenix. And that's when Bob Ralph and he wanted to sign us with Barry White. And so we were really game for that. We was like, okay. So we went to Phoenix and they were supposed to meet us in Phoenix, Barry White's crew, to come to check us out. And we had a couple individuals in our group, the Flashers at the time, that they didn't want to go. So they went, but then we were there. They went back home to Ohio. And so now it was about 3 months in, Barry decided to send Bob Ralph over to check us out. We didn't even have a singer. We didn't have a keyboard player, a bass player rather. And that's when TC or Stanley Brown, these are my two brothers that was in the group, they knew Greg Williams. And they said, well, I know this guy, that maybe we can get. Now, Bob Ralph's on his way to Phoenix to see us. We didn't even have a group at that time because they kind of like left. So that's when we first met Bobby and Greg, because Greg came along with Bobby. And that was the very first time we met them right then. And so there we just threw some songs together because I believe they got there pretty much the same day or the day after. So we didn't really have a chance to really get that continuity in the group, but we did that Keep Your Head to the Sky. That's Bobby sang that song. And that just sold it. So we were good. We were good at that point right there. And Bob Ralph said, oh yeah. So then we put some songs together. They took us to California to meet Barry. So we get there, we go into this office they had on Sunset Boulevard, and we're all there, all excited. And here come Barry in there, and he was very big and imposing guy, had rings on all his fingers, and really, kind of rusty, knuckles. Could have used some lotion. But anyway, he comes in and so he sits down. We're sitting at the desk and he sits down and he puts his hands, fold them, and then he looks at us and looks across and says, I like you guys, but if you mess with me, I'm going to F you up for life. That was the first thing he said to us. Okay, we're,
Wow, playing the intimidation game right away.
First day, first sentence was, and it was like crazy, but it was a good experience. We made an album with him and sold about 3 copies. My mom bought 2 of them.
Well, now they're valuable collectibles,
Oh yeah.
What was your first impressions of Bobby and Greg?
Oh, I right away, they were pretty much, I liked them right from the beginning because they were pretty much saving I thought at that time, my career, because here we had this big opportunity and we had nobody. So they were heaven sent as far as that was concerned. I pretty much didn't even care one way or another what they were like, as long as they were a group. But once I hear the talent, it was something to behold. Bobby right away, he sang that song, Earth, Wind, Fire, Keep Your Head to the Sky, and it was crystal clear falsetto. And I was like, right then, I was like, oh my goodness, this guy can sing. And then Greg was really, really good with organizing and just an all around get along with everybody guy. And so he was very, very good at inserting that in. And it was just a marriage from the beginning. They didn't like me when they first met me, though, because when we picked them up at the airport, it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And they came from Grand Rapids and they had on these big coats and scarves and leather gloves with the rabbit fur inside. And so I was making fun of them. So I found out later that 2 of them, they got together like, man, who's this guy? I didn't know him well enough to joke with him, but they didn't like me at all at the beginning. So, but very impressed with the talent that they had. Very, very much so. Just love those guys. Yeah.
And so that was around 1974 that you first met Barry White and got that deal?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And we went there, had our thing going there. Yeah.
And how did you come up with the group name?
White Heat, he gave us that name. And so we lost our name TNT Flashers because that was the name we had. And he just gave us the name White Heat. I don't know. Just all of a sudden we were called White Heat. It was like, oh, okay. Barry, he just did what he said, your name is White Heat. He said, well, okay, her name is White Heat then. But that was it, really. Yeah. Wanted that.
Did he pop in at all during the recording sessions?
Oh yeah, he popped in. I got a very vivid memory of one time when he came in there and we was working on this song, and Please Don't Let Me Go. I believe that was it. And anyway, Bobby was playing on the piano, and Barry. So Bobby and Barry were sitting on the same piano bench. And Barry, I believe his background was drums, so he like pound on the piano. And really good though, but he pound on it. So he was playing, and then Bobby was there, and Bobby played his little soft touch on the keyboards. But to see them where Barry took up like this much of the bench, and there was this little piece left for Bobby, they were sitting on there together playing this one of our songs, and I just have that memory of that day. Of them sitting on that piano playing together that song. So I wish I remember which song it was, but I just remember that visual.
Quite a contrast.
Yeah, it was really funny. But Barry, he really backed us. He really loved us a lot. We actually played at his wedding, him and Glodine, when he had a wedding. We played, provided the music for him and all that. So yeah.
Wow. Well, on that first record, I got to say, Talkin', was a real like Sly Stone kind of funk thing. You remember that track?
I do. I do. Stanley wrote that. I remember that song. Yeah, that was actually that song. The bass player, Vince Jefferson, he played the bass because we didn't have Tommy with us at the time. And actually, after we broke up, Barry ended up getting Vince to join his band there. So, but yeah, Vince was the bass, I was the drums man, and we was licking it down on that one. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was syncopation right there.
Yeah, that's a groove. That's what I'm about. So, well, once it was done, how'd you feel about the project? Not considering, the promotion and that kind of thing, but how'd you feel about the project?
Well, there's a then and there was afterwards, but then we thought, hey, this was it. And I remember when we finally had the final product, and we were invited to Barry's office, and then we listened to it for the first time as it was mixed and all that. And it was really, really sounding good. And I was just so into it. I thought that was awesome. But I remember Stanley, he did not like the mix. I remember that. And he had that foresight, because later you find out that, yeah, it sounded good with the big giant quad system that Barry had in his office. But when you listen to it on a little radio, it just didn't cut through right. But Stanley had that foresight to see that. But I know myself personally, I thought it was great at the time. It was like, that was our first real record. So I was more into that, I was like green, I guess. And but Stanley, he wasn't feeling it. Not at all. Not at all. No.
Did you go out and perform at all under White Heat, on any tours or any showcases or?
Well, we did a couple when we went back to Ohio. We did a couple gigs then around the tri-state where Flashers used to play, the TNT Flashers, because people still knew us as that. So we just really played around in that same area, but it didn't last too long. And then we eventually just disbanded. Didn't take too long.
And so, as I understand it, Jody, the label basically dissolved, and you guys, kind of lost access to your work, or what happened there? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, he owned all the masters and all that. And so, yeah, we just lost everything there. Even our name and our identity, I feel. Because our identity was a Flash, so we built from there. We had a huge following, like I said, in the tri-state area, but it just fell apart, and we lost everything. And then Vince, he left and went play with Barry. So there you have it, insult to injury.
Did you guys take the personally, or was it just all a business thing? Or
well. The one thing about the at that time, we didn't really have a leader. So everybody, we ended up staying in a group home. That's where we met the Upshaws, very beautiful family, and we stayed in their homes. It was like we all stayed in this house. So we practiced, we rehearsed sometimes and things like that. But there was no real leader, and there was no real direction. And so it's one of those things where it just fell apart. I remember the day I just packed my drums and left. I remember that day. It just, you got to have a leader, no matter how you look at it. You have to have a leader and some direction. And we didn't have either at that time when we went back to Ohio. Barry dropped us by, I believe it was a letter he wrote. And once he dropped us, it was like, okay, because he was sending a check in like every week or month or something. And, when that, you put that bucket down the well and you keep pulling out money, pretty soon you put it down and you pull up zero, nothing, nada. It's kind of hard to survive at that time. And so that's how it ended up just dispersing.
And you resurfaced as Hot Ice, or what transpired there?
No, the Hot Ice was a whole a different thing. The Hot Ice technically was the demo that Greg and myself and the guys we made to get the deal with Motown. So that was just the demos that we owned at the time. That ended up being Hot Ice with Bernd Lichters. He was involved in that. So it's really, there was never really a group at the time, Hot Ice. It was really Switch before it was Switch. So we made this demo, Columbus. We go out there to California, try to get a record deal. But then we still had the masters that we owned, but we didn't have anything to do with that at Motown. It got us a deal at Motown, but Bernd Lichters, he took it and made White Heat out of it.
Okay, and that only came out overseas at first, and then more recently it came out as Smash, or later on it came out as Smash in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Yes. But on that record, I got to say the Pall Mall Groove, it's a pretty good jam. Anyway, it's a nice piece.
Anyway, yeah. The Pall Mall Groove, Greg wrote that. That was actually the original, very beginning of that whole project. That was the actual project's name and everything. That groove right there. So yeah, that was it. And anyway, that was Darnell wrote that, I believe. Darnell Wyrick. He wrote that. Yeah. Another funk song. You like that funk stuff, I see.
Oh yeah, big time. So, and your James Brown roots came out in Please Don't Let Me Go, which definitely was a JB style funk track.
Yeah, that song. I even remember us when we did that song, we did a couple gigs with White Heat back there. And I clearly remember we were in Little Washington, Pennsylvania, and we played that song. And the people just loved that song. I just remember that particular gig and that song that Bobby sang, and with the flutes and, and the backbeat and all that. Yeah. That's a beautiful song, actually. I love that. I still like that song. I would have loved the Switch to have done that song. But that was a really I love that song. Be a good, nice re-recording of it or something.
Well, I just really wanted to bring out those tunes and those records because, people that even are familiar with Switch may not be familiar with that pre-Switch material. And it's definitely worth going to check out, especially if you enjoy, the more up-tempo and funky Switch material. I think you'll definitely like this material too. And it's just fascinating too to just see, your guys' development from then to what you became. When did the what would be the Switch One lineup coalesce? How did the rest of the guys come together to finalize that lineup?
It was almost identical story with the Flasher to White Heat as the First Class to Switch, because we went to Columbus, like I said, and we made the demo. And so thus Greg and myself went to California to get a record deal, right? So we go to California, get a record deal. Even when we were on a plane, we didn't even really have a name yet. We just had this demo. And, but there's the person that flew us out there. We had to borrow some money and, flew us first class, put us in first class. And, me and Greg, we was enjoying this, getting our little alcohol for free and just, So we came up with the name First Class. We said, okay, hey, we just call us First Class. Okay, that sounds good. So that's how we had that name. We got that name on, we're on a flight going to California to try to get a record deal. And we told the individual that I borrowed the money from, that would just we'll get us a record deal in 2 weeks. Just a couple weeks, we'll have a record deal. I told, and said, okay, and boom. So we go out there and we ran into Jermaine in the elevator, as everyone knows that story. And it was such a coincidence because it was the only tape we had. We had one cassette tape. And we were upstairs on the top floor in the attorney's office there trying to talk over some stuff. And we wouldn't give him. We say, look, we couldn't give him this tape. That's all we got. We got to go make a copy of it. When we get in the elevator going down, door opens up, and lo and behold, there come Jermaine and Hazel. They walk in the elevator. Me and Greg look at it, was like, hey, you know. And so then they get off on the 5th floor, was the garage. And they said hi, and then the door closed. We said, hey, man, we should give them the tape. So we had to hurry up and run back or get the elevator to go back up to the 5th floor to catch them. So we caught them. In fact, Jermaine was leaning over in his car looking for a cassette to play, because we found that out later. And we run in there, and Greg scribbling the name, get in contact with us. If you like us, give us a call thing and hand it to him. And we understand later, Jermaine popped it in right then. So, okay, he just popped it in. So he called us the very next day. And that was the day that they had their son. And so we met them at the hospital, or he came pick us up and took us up there. So he said, we want to have a showcase. All right. So they get the place for us, and we're going to have a showcase. So we called the guys up. We was actually at Jermaine's house. Me and Greg, we called the guys up that originally made that and said, hey, we got this deal with Jermaine and all this stuff. They didn't want to come. They were like, nah, man, I got a job and that stuff. So now here we are again. Exact same situation we had there in Phoenix. So that's when we decided, hey, somebody we can get. And that's when we put the call into Bobby and Tommy, and they came in, and that finished the group. And there you go. So we had the group just tight enough to do the showcase. There, the showcase. Barry Gordy comes in there with all his entourage, Suzanne DePass, I remember that, Tony Jones, and all these, and a lot of the producers at Motown to hear Jermaine's group. And so they liked it. And again, we didn't have a name at the time, because we understood that there was a group on United Artists called First Class. So we already knew we didn't have a name, because we couldn't use that name. But then Suzanne DePass is the one that stood up and said, man, I never seen anybody switch so much in my life, because we changed instruments. One person playing this, the next song, Bobby's on the drums, I'm on the singing, or Greg is playing the keyboard. Now him and Eddie's on the horn. So we did all that little thing. And so that's where the name come from. Right there. Everybody was throwing names out. Hey, let's call it this. Hey, let's call us that. And so, and so finally I went to Greg. I said, Greg, listen, don't say yes. Don't say nothing. I want you to think about this for a minute. We should call ourselves Switch. That's what we should call it, and I explained what Suzanne, just think about it. And so then we discussed it and thought, and that's where our name come from. Right there.
Wow. That's, I knew that story, but I never get tired of hearing it, because it's just one of those classic, great music stories with Jermaine. It's just a serendipity, or fate, whatever you want to call it. And when you guys went out there, when you and Greg went out, it sounds like you were confident you were going to make it. But how sure did you feel that you were going to be able to make a livelihood out of pursuing your dream of music?
We were absolutely sure. We just, there was no doubt in our mind, and maybe it was blind faith or whatever, but we just knew, because it was, we already had our bumps and bruises and everything, but we just knew, because that group had that something about it. We always felt that we would, and we really did. And our confidence, or I should speak for myself, got a little shaky there for a while, because after it was released is when it was like crickets, because LA seemed to be the last city to really pick it up. So, because it blew up down south, but we don't live down south. So we just maybe see a couple charts, but it was like, oh, I don't know, man. It's so, the first thing you do, you start blaming promotion. Yeah, it's not the music, it's to promote. They should promote it more, that kind of thing. But then when we went out on tours, when we realized we had something.
What was the first tour? What was the first tour, Jody?
Well, that was a promotional tour we went out on. And the very first first venue we went to, or record shop, we should say, was at a mall there in Detroit. And that was the very first. And so we, you know, I'm sure everybody heard the story, but we got in the limo very first time, never heard our songs and stuff in LA. Remember this now. So we go on this promotional tour to promote the music. So we're all in this limo and we're cruising on to go to the venue or where we were going to sign autographs. And we looked out there, and I remember clearly Bobby looks over there and he says, boy, well, that's what we need to be going over there where all those people are, you know? And that's when the security guy comes and say, no, that is where you're going. Those people are there for you guys. That was just mind blowing right there.
Wow. I can only imagine. How'd you feel when you first heard They'll Never Be on the radio?
It was almost tear-jerking-ish kind of thing. I was actually shopping in a store, and it came over the loudspeaker. And your music, you can hear one little note of it and know it's yours. And it was like, what? And so I remember sitting on where they have, like a table where they have pants and stuff. I moved the pants aside and sat right there to listen to the speaker coming down and listen to it. That's the first time I heard it. And it was just, it was surreal because that was something else right there. That was something.
And was your father still around to enjoy it with you, or?
It was my granddad, and yes, he was.
So that must have put some icing on that cake.
Yeah, yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. That was my granddad, and for sure.
How hands-on was Jermaine on that first record during that time?
He was there a lot. He was there a lot. Hands-on. He kind of let us do our thing, but he was really involved a lot in the vocals. Because remember, he did that song, I Want to Be Closer. And that he wrote that song. So he was really into that. And plus, he was working on his own career. He was working with Stevie Wonder on Let's Get Serious album. So he was working with that. But yeah, he was there. Very supportive. Very supportive. He was like one of the guys. Hazel came down quite a few times too on the sessions. But he wasn't like hoovering over us where we couldn't have our creative juices flowing. But he was very supportive. Jermaine was awesome. I still think he's underrated. More people should hear how talented he is.
Yeah, I agree. In how quick of order did you get exposure to that incredible roster of superstars that are part of the Motown family? You know, did you come in contact with Stevie or Diana or, all these other greats, even Rick James?
Yeah, well, we didn't see Diana Ross too much. She would come in and she was always whisked through or something like that. Stevie, we seen him quite a bit. In fact, he come in, I'm sure you've heard of that. You might have heard of that story where he came into our session. We were doing that song, Don't Take My Love Away. And if you listen to that song, Don't Take My Love Away, at the end, there's a lot of harmonies. The music pulls out and it's just the harmonies all the way through the end. And so we were done, really. And he comes in there and it was so, Stevie is so, I don't know. When he comes into the room, he just, what do you call, suck the air out of the room, where it's just all you just look at him. You just look, this guy is really a superstar in my book. And that's what I realized what a superstar is. When he walked into that room, it was like everybody's like, breathtaking almost. He comes in and he introduced himself, and there was a gentleman over there in the corner over here. He wasn't in our group. He was a friend, and he was sitting there. And Stevie sits down and says, "Why aren't you going to introduce me to this person over here?" And that right there was the real like, Okay. So then we did, and so you look at him, you be honestly, in my mind, I'm thinking, I wonder if can he see, or, because after that, it was like crazy. But anyway, so we played a song and we had all these voices and all of this talent, the switch and the engineer and all that. And Stevie said, wait, hold on. Somebody singing flat. And we're talking about voices of choir almost. We said, man, get out of here, man. By that time we were, nah, we talking. No, I'm serious. So we pulled all the faders back and had all the vocals. And we still didn't hear it. He said, no, it's here. So you start pulling it back one at a time. And lo and behold, that Stevie is something else. He heard it amidst all the drums, the keyboards, choir, everything. He heard that flat note. He did. And it was too late to re-record it. So we ducked. We just, how you duck it. Just pull it back a little bit so you can't really hear. You can just feel it, but not hear it. That was Stevie. Rick James, he just loved Switch, and Switch loved him. He was always around a lot. In fact, breaking out, he was doing the la 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 la's on there. He always liked that on our song. So he said, I'm gonna put it on my song. He went there and put it on the song. Rick was cool, man. He was really cool.
I think maybe what you're after with Stevie is he has an aura about him.
Yes, he does. And that was not just that time, but others. It's just something about him. Yeah.
I saw him play the LA Forum in 1980, the like Hotter Than July tour. And even in that size of a crowd, you can feel it. I could feel it. I was like, man, this guy is just radiating charisma.
That's so true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, Stevie. And he was always one of my favorites anyway. So I guess that was even twice as delightful, if you will.
Yeah. So, Jody, what was the first tour though that Switch got out with? Who were you on a bill with?
We were on a bill with Barkays. We did a lot with Barkays. We was on there with Zap. We did some with Cool and Gay, because there was various groups in different towns, but they call it the Love Funk Tour. I remember that. And so Barkays and ourselves was really yoked together, if you will. And there was other groups that came in and out throughout the tour, but they were the main ones that we were yoked with.
I always felt like, Switch definitely had its own sound, but for my ears, if I have to like think of another band of the time that kind of had some similarities, the ones I think of that come to mind are like a Confunction and Earth, Wind and Fire. So, and also the ability to, be adept at the ballads and also at the up-tempo. And I think both of those groups also could do that.
Yeah, I've heard the Earth, Wind and Fire comparison. I've never really heard the Confunction. I think because I remember them being like a big band that had a lot of horns and stuff. Is that true? I'm trying to remember the Confunction, but I never really heard that comparison. But I heard the Earth, Wind and Fire comparison quite a bit. Yeah, I heard that. And I don't know, that Earth and Fire, woof. Now that's a compliment.
Did you guys ever go out with them?
At the Flashers, we played a couple times. One of the TNT Flashers, we played with them a couple times, but with Switch, we never had a chance to play with them. But the Flashers, we did.
So when you were looking to have, the persona, if you will, of Switch, the identity of Switch, you guys hit it so big with a ballad. How did you feel about how you wanted the group to get over and be perceived in terms of, a love? You said the Love and the Funk tour. So in terms of, more of like the love side or more of the funk R&B side, or just a real balance of both?
My feeling is a little bit different than maybe others, because I remember, I guess there was some actors that they said they didn't want to be typecast. It's coming up in their careers, if you will. Myself personally, I felt that whatever's working, that's what you work. And I wasn't a big fan of getting off of that. I obviously, being a drummer, I love the beat and all that, but our success was ballads. And I myself personally love to ride that gravy train all the way, because that was it. You know how tough it is to break through, and you break through on this style and this genre and the way you are and the way you look, the way you sound. Why would you want to change that? And so that's just me. Now, other people, yeah, you want to grow. Well, you could grow still in that area, but Best Beat in Town, We Like to Party was really a nice hit song too at the beginning. But I just love that Philip, Bobby bounce back and forth sound. I love that sound. I want to be closer, because you don't get too much of it. You get some of Philip, you get some of Bobby, and I would ride that till you can't ride it no more. That's just how I feel.
Well, you mentioned LA was a little slow in the uptake initially, but once it did hit in LA, which is where I'm from, it was played incredibly often. I mean, it was huge once it got over.
Agreed. It was all over the radio. And it took a while, because like I said, now I understand the business. It broke out in the South, but man, you're right. It was all over. We had a wonderful autograph session at Freeway Records, kind of a tongue twister. And it was the Temptations was there. Rick James was there. We were there. I don't think of someone else, but they really appreciated Switch over there. And that was really a fun little thing we had going there at Freeway Records. That was LA's finest, man. It was awesome.
How would you describe the chemistry and interaction of the band, in those first couple of records?
The first couple of records, the chemistry was it was real. It was real. It was everybody kind of. The first record was everybody trying to feel their way through and see, because there was other producers at Motown that was submitting songs as well. So it was coming from all areas. So our continuity was good. We had Jermaine was involved a lot with our development. So the chemistry was real good. And I think that Jermaine was that glue that kind of held us together throughout the first couple, really the first one and the second one. But then after the second one, maybe there was less Jermaine, and it kind of like was starting to, everybody do their thing, so to speak. Everybody's a writer. Everyone wants to be a producer. Everyone wants to, it got into that.
What was it? A lot of conflict or tension in choosing the material, because I know you had some, composing and production credits too, but it was, a lot of different people shared in that.
No, I don't, it's funny. The conflict, no, I don't say it wasn't a conflict at all. It's just that everyone they were getting involved in a lot of personal things. But when we got together, I always felt we were really super tight together, and we got along really good. We worked together very well. So no, as far as a group and a continuity, it was always there throughout. That's how I felt. Yeah. But personal lives, everybody started having a lot of personal stuff going on. But when we got together, we were together.
Once you hit it and made it, did you ever cross paths with Barry White? Did he maybe regret letting you guys go?
All right, there's a story there. We were doing Hal Jackson Talented Teen TV show. That was our first TV appearance. And at the time, we hadn't had our release yet, but we were going to release I Want to Be With You. That was going to be our first release. It wasn't They'll Never Be. But anyway, Jermaine's our manager. But guess who's Jermaine's one of his best friends was? Barry White. Now, Barry never came around us, so I don't even know if he even knew who we were or whatever, right? But he so happened to come to the Hal Jackson Talented Teen show. And he come into the dressing room and he just shook his head and he said, I just didn't have the patience. Those are the words that came out of his mouth. He just didn't have the patience. It was the same because it was Greg, Bobby, and myself. Us three was from the White Heat. And those is his words. So yeah, we ran into him. That's that one time.
Hey, he remembered you guys.
What?
I said he remembered you guys.
Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah.
Of course he did. Yeah. He that's what he said to us when he saw us. Yeah. He said, yeah, I just didn't have the patience. Quite a different spin of attitude than it was when he first met us.
Yeah.
It was a complete different turnaround, but I don't have anything bad to say about him because he did look out for us. When the whole time we were there with him, Barry looked out for us. He did.
Well, you know what I mean? He's come up many times in the course of this show, and I've only heard, for the most part, good stuff on Barry White. So
that's right. That's right.
Who determined, you said, that the band was kind of lacking a leader, when you early on, how did you rally around a unified vision, for what the image of the band would be in terms of, attire and the show that you would put on and those kinds of things?
That was Motown. Motown had that because I remember when they sent us on a shopping spree to go buy stuff because we had the original album cover never was released. We had our own personal clothes. We dressed up though, kind of, but not in suits and stuff. But we weren't one of those Party and Funkadelic type dressing groups. So we kind of dressed up, and that album cover never was released. Because what happened was somewhere along the line, behind the scenes, they said, oh, we need a redo of this. And that's when they sent us down there, I remember in Beverly Hills, to go shopping, to pick out clothes. So the clothes that we had on the very first album cover, Motown bought all that stuff for us. And so next thing we know, we saw the album cover and it was pretty mind-blowing because we didn't have any clue it was going to be like that. That was totally Motown.
Mm. And then you just followed with that because it was working.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you probably ended up being about the sharpest dressed on a lot of those tours that you guys did.
Yeah, that's what I like about the group. And they're still that way too. We never always like to just look our best, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Sometimes you wonder why anyone wouldn't want to do that, but everybody's to each his own, so to speak.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.